I will now move on to the second presentation. I have to note, by way of introduction, that the International Commission on the Assessment of Nazi and Occupational Regimes, it's too long a name for this commission. Could you come up with an abbreviation which would be simpler and easier to remember? The ones who remember the name correctly can even get a gift for that. I mean, I'm joking. I give the floor to Ms. R Morkunaite, who is a very young but experienced politician. She's a member of the European Parliament, and she has been very active socially. She combats the Nord Stream in the Baltic Sea, and she has several positive initiatives. One of them is the visual retelling of the freedom fighters. As far as I understand, Radvila will talk about the freedom fighters in her speech. The floor is yours, Radvila.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for this forum, for the possibility to gather together, and I mean people investigating one or another totalitarian regime, and an attempt to bring us together under the common umbrella of history. I will start my presentation from bureaucratic formulations, because our topic is quite complex. I will quote the resolution from the European Parliament in 2009. The resolution is on European conscience, which encourages European countries to put more effort in teaching history at schools, emphasizing contrast between the tragic past and the present within the European Union. It has to be noted here that the resolutions of different political groups and proposals differed a little. Some political groups suggested more specific things. However, in the final version of the resolution, we have a milder text. However, the essence of it, when speaking about the necessity of general education in history, has remained. Another document of the European Union, the Council of Justice, and conclusions by the Council that states that responsibility lies with the member states. However, the European Union is obliged to contribute to their efforts. And the member states are encouraged either to take initiatives or support initiatives to educate society about totalitarian regime experience of the member states. And it also positively assesses the attempts of the Council to help the interested countries to encourage such initiatives. Among other things, the necessity to adjust the European Union programs, allocate the necessary funding for them, and give attention to small organizations and schools willing to participate in the programs dedicated for developing the historical memory. And now probably we should see how it is all reflected in real life. Probably many would say that only a long time after the fall of the Iron Curtain, collapse of the Soviet Union, we started to speak loudly about our experience. It was only after 20 years that we see appearance of certain documents. Well, speaking about the origin of the Soviet Union, of the European Union, we can say that the Union was created following the need to develop common interests and values, a peaceful conflict-solving platform to achieve peace and stability of the continent. This, while one part of Europe was reconciliating, cleaning, and integrating, the other part remained behind the Iron Curtain, left for totalitarian communism occupation. The things that the first part of Europe knew quite little about, and this is why its assessment is so diverse depending on each person's individual perception. We could find people in the European Parliament itself who find communist ideas quite attractive. For instance, parties from Portugal and Greece, the communist parties that have raised quite ideas that seem quite popular today. After our countries came back to the family of democratic states, some mental differences seem to be still alive. Certainly, these differences are diminishing, nobody can deny it. However, in principle, all that 50-year period has its own consequences, not only on the societies who have suffered, but also those who we communicate with. And as an example, I could mention the recent events like Golovatov's release, where we see the misinterpretation of certain facts in history. Another thing, if we speak about everyday decisions, whether we speak about energy or Eastern neighborhood policy, countries like South Caucasus state, Moldova, Ukraine, again, we see existence of certain cliches and perception regarding these states, which is not always accurate. Some time ago, a poster appeared in the European Commission building, Europe for All, that had 5-angled star consisting lots of symbols, mainly religious ones, including the well-known Soviet system symbol. The poster was later on taken off, even though the Commission said it was not their initiative. That was a project funded by the European Commission intended for schools, and schools from several European Union member states thought that this poster could represent all the countries and systems, and they saw nothing wrong about it. But this is just an example of how certain symbols are differently perceived by various member states, and it also symbolizes and shows the lack of legal regulation, common legal regulation in Europe. And certainly it has to start from national level. However, understanding on the European level is extremely important for all of us. As for the states that are going to join the European Union. We know that Croatia is going to join on the 1st of July 2013. Lithuania will have the honor to preside over 28 European Union member states, but again, speaking about other countries like Serbia, who is also going to become one of the member states, we have to send a strong signal regarding the archives. And in this case, there shouldn't be any doubt to any candidate countries that the country has to make communist crimes public and open up their archives, make them available for everyone interested. Even sometimes it's not a secret. We hear the attempts of the Serbian authorities to deny the genocide and communist crimes. It has to be very clear to everyone how the European Union treats these issues. The documents I have mentioned, the resolution of the European Parliament and conclusions of the Council, the European Commission presented a conclusion regarding legal regulation and assessment of communist crimes, saying that it is more an issue of national level, and the point I really appreciate is the conclusion of the European Parliament regarding August the 23rd, the day when Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was adopted, and its role. During Lithuania's presidency in 2013, our country will have the responsibility to speak about these issues on the highest level, tied to the date of the 23rd of August. As for education within the European Union, I could speak from my own experience and the initiatives we are making together with a group of reconciliation of history. The group was initiated by my Latvian colleague Sandra Kalniete, and the initiatives discussions going on in the European Parliament. We had fewer of them in the past, not to mention the years when Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and the Czech Republic were not members of the European Union. A lot depends on the individual initiatives of the members of the European Parliament. We are making an effort to combine these initiatives. I'm glad to see the representatives of the film Eyes Children, and demonstration of relevant films, let's say about the 13th of January, show that our colleagues from Western Europe know quite little about that period. Probably they have a vague understanding that the Iron Curtain existed, that the human rights of people were violated. However, as far as repressions and deportations to Siberia are concerned, deportations of entire families, including small babies and elderly people, seems to be quite difficult to understand. And when you see tears in people's eyes when watching a film, you make sure that the message has reached them. And individual actions are really very important in the context of overall activities on our political agenda. We can't expect good understanding from the countries that haven't had direct experience. let's say if we take Romania, the country that has also survived, back in 2010, research has shown that 41% of people would vote for Ceausescu. 63% of people thought they were better off in the communist regime. A lot of people thought the communism is a good idea, but its implementation was not quite successful. It means that in our own countries, we still have a lot of questions that need to be answered. Or people stick to the opinion formulated by certain interest groups. And in my view, this research, it is very important that this research is conducted all over the European Union, and I have addressed the European Commission urging to conduct a Eurobarometer research so that we know clearly what is the opinion of other member states. As for the events of more recent history, let's say 22 years ago, we see that many people do not clearly remember and sometimes mix the events, let's say, of the 13th of January and the day of the establishment of Lithuania's independence. And the knowledge accumulated by people from media, from television, whatever, do not seem to be really comprehensive and accurately perceived. So, on one hand, speaking about our recent experience and the experience from the times of the Second World War or Holocaust, we face a challenge, and it shows that we have to take a deep interest in Holocaust period, because let's say my parents and grandparents didn't have much information about this phenomenon, and certainly each suffering is unique, and we shouldn't try to confront all those tragic experiences of people. What is most important is to learn more, increase people's awareness, and proceed further. There are quite a number of initiatives speaking about the Mission Siberia, the annual meeting of our former partisans. Probably you heard that a few years ago this initiative was implemented. And as how people succeed in transferring their understanding of historical experience is welcomed. We try to cooperate with elderly people and listen to their proposals because their experience is extremely valuable. However, I believe that young people have to find their own ways to commemorate the dates that are significant for Lithuania and how they perceive the historical memory. Private initiatives can also be mentioned in this respect. For instance, deportation museums, and I hope that the upcoming Seimas will adopt amendment to the law defining the status of these museums. In recent years, the activities of the Genocide Center in terms of all kinds of educational programs has really intensified, and new subject matters have been included in school curricula, and this can serve as one of the key motors to encourage pupils to take more interest in our history. As Nerijus mentioned about a DVD dedicated for schools, so together with a group of Bernardinai, we have released a set of narratives in a form of a DVD where we collected interviews from the then resistance movement participants. Today's interviews of people who find it very difficult to better understand history. So if you are interested, you can address my bureau and acquire the DVD, even though they are, first of all, intended for schools and school pupils. Making a shift from Lithuanian schools to European schools. Mrs. Jokke van den Lofrot will probably speak about that as well. However, the problem is that we are all trying to learn our own history and to teach our own history. And let's say in different countries, the emphasis is sometimes made on different things. Some people think that the threat of the nuclear war are most important, and very few countries look deeper into the processes of the Soviet Union, in addition to the Cold War teaching what was happening with people living under the curtain, under the Iron Curtain at that time. Well, probably I will stop here, just adding that the attempts to speak about historical memory and to combine initiatives related to preservation of historical memory in each European country is of crucial importance. And we can just welcome the initiative of Europe to European citizens that supports a number of projects, including the film Ice Children, that was partly funded from this program, and I very much hope that within the next coming framework of 2014-2020, a lot of interesting and useful initiatives will be also supported, and small organizations should necessarily submit their applications. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope for a fruitful discussion.
Thank you,
Radvile. It was very interesting indeed to hear you. If I don't see any people to ask questions, I will put forward one, but I can see many questions. I'm teacher of history. My name is R. There's one more problem. Today in the Lithuanian curricula, subjects are being reduced in numbers, and the Western culture is less obvious in the curriculum. So in the near future, our pupils will not know much about Western Europe, just as Western European students don't know much about the Iron Curtain. What I mean are the creation of subcultures, the movements of the 80s. They are not represented in our programs. and it's only left to the initiative of the teachers whether they speak about it or not. I think during this conference we should share an opinion that United Europe is a history of both Western and Eastern Europe. So our peoples have the right to have a full-fledged coverage of both parts of Europe. Thank you. It was a comment. I give the floor to some more comments and later you'll be able to answer. My name is Strončikas. I represent the Lithuanian Resistance and Political Prisoners Association. Mrs. Radvile, you mentioned that starting with the 1st of July, Lithuania will be presiding over the Council of the European Union. Totalitarian regimes, both in Lithuania and other countries, Lithuania suffered most, of course, but how is Lithuania preparing to use the presidency so that the European Union knows more about these problems and that past? Next question, please. My name is Chasnavichus. I'm interested in the following. We keep speaking about the Ribbentrop-Molotov pact, but we almost never analyze the agreement between Roosevelt and Stalin. Why? Europe was given to Stalin. Algirdas Andriukaitis, I'm signatory to the Act of Independence. I have a question. In 1998, the Seimas of the Republic of Lithuania adopted a law that the NKVD, MGB, NGB, and KGB are criminal organizations. We know that the Russian FSB is the legal has taken over the rights of this KGB. In 2010, 3 FSB members were invited to a court case in the case of Kusaite. What is your opinion on that? And what would be your suggestions? Thank you. I think this is it, and I will give the floor to Radvile. Thank you. I thank the teacher for her question and for her comment. Maybe you could also answer the question of why these curricula are shortened. I think there's a lack of sensible, reasonable thinking. Teachers are trying to combat that, but there's a lack of political decisions. The key principle of the fact that Eastern and Western history are parts of European history. The lack of the understanding of this principle and pooled efforts are needed. Teachers are not enough. They need to organize cooperation because single initiatives face too many obstacles to be a success. I agree with you completely. hope that our guest from the Netherlands will be able to answer your comment in part when she covers the initiatives of the EU. The Belgian and Dutch history, to me, is something foreign. I don't know much about it. I know that there were colonies, they had colonies, and how this is reflected in today's relations. You might be surprised that many Portuguese go to Angola. Why Angola? It's very clear if you once you know history, but if you don't know history, then you don't understand these issues. So I do agree with you on the joint approach to Eastern and Western European history. As for the presidency, we will have new ministers in place. I'm interested in their approach. Even so, the planned events for the presidency should not change, because this is within the interest of Lithuania not to change these events and the schedule for the presidency. If I'm not mistaken, on the 23rd of August, Lithuania will organize a forum at the EU level. Whether it will be oriented towards the wider society, I don't know. We should need to talk about communication. But the events have already been planned. It's up to MPs, individual MPs, to cover the issues they're interested in, and the historical memory is on our agenda. As for the agreement between Roosevelt and Stalin, this is a sensitive issue. One may say that people don't know their history and they don't know what happened, but still, even the Soviet Union, everyone sees the Soviet Union as a winner of the war in 1945. And it's quite difficult to change this perception abroad. I will illustrate that by answering to the question of Mr. Algirdas on the FSB. There was a case in the European Parliament. Well, you know that we have to endorse the members of the Chamber of Auditors. From Hungary, there was a mandate to a person given to a person who used to work in the secret structures in Belgium during the Soviet times. So the European Parliament raised the issue of whether we can approve this candidate. There was a wave of misunderstandings. Some people thought he was competent enough and he was sociable, had good skills and all the competences to take this office, and he was endorsed, not by a huge majority of votes, but in fact he was endorsed. So there is a lack of willingness to understand this past, and this is reflected in these decisions, even though it was proved in the case of that person that he had clear links with the Soviet power structures. I do agree that this person might have the necessary competences, but still he has the bad history. If we talked about people who had some links with Gestapo, nobody would approve of them taking similar positions. As for the European Parliament and the approach, this was the thing that illustrated the fact that Western Europeans failed to realize What about Lithuania? Well, there are two institutions and interinstitutional cooperation is in place. Can we demand Russia to change their structures? No, probably not. It would be difficult to do this. As for Usaite's case, we all know that this is the national issue, and I couldn't comment more on that. Unless we look into that in fora like this one, the West will never understand us. If we talk a lot, nobody will learn more anyway. What are the ways to reach out to those people? Should we talk about the victims? Should we talk about the crimes? Should we talk in person to them? Should we promote books or other media? Well, this is not the subject issue of today's conference, and we still have 1.5 hours for this panel session. I have a specific demand. My name is Irena Domevichute. I am a tour guide. Could your institutions contribute to the lessening of slander in Western European press? How are teleshay presented in one Western book? It's written that Germans came and killed the Jews whom Lithuanian partisans were unable to kill. A journalist came to the KGB museum here. He wrote a nice book about partisans, and then he said most of them participated in the Jew killing. I don't think this is correct. He should have at least mentioned the surnames. There was another case where a person went to Lithuania and wrote on the cover of the book that it's an autobiography. When I went out from a hotel Artis, I tried to comment on the monument of Žemaitė, an author of the 19th century literature in Lithuania, and I briefly tell about this writer. Neither the Swiss, nor Austrians, nor Germans have ever heard about her. Does your work reach out to the Western media? And my next example is as follows. A colleague of mine went to the chapel which commemorates the victims of communism. The member of the Bundestag delegation said, "We are not interested, let's go on." Thank you for those facts. Some groups in the West might not be interested in the Lithuanian partisans, and I do agree that specific facts and specific surnames should be mentioned. When we speak about the European Parliament and the ways we distribute the message, it's quite important to think about video materials. This is most useful. There was a film, Ledo Vaikai, the children from ice country, and this was a very impressive work of art which made a huge impression on the Western born people. Photos are also quite useful. People are not interested in reading texts unless they are historians or researchers who find a lot of interest in reading long texts. So step by step, we are finding friends who have heard and understand something about Lithuania and who understand what happened here. We can't expect all 700 members of the European Parliament to understand everything immediately. But year by year, step by step, we can do things to help them understand. We should also cooperate with TV channels such as RT, which provide documentaries and broadcast documentaries, so that not only totalitarian regime but also other experiences are covered in their documentaries. Thank you. I will close the debate now, and